All right. Shalom, 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 y'all. Shalom. We got a good show for you today. Um, I think I had spoke on this on a couple of my other shows that this show would be forthcoming. And what we're talking about is biblical masculinity. Um, what I'm going to do first is make sure my audio is good this time. I've tweaked out my audio system, so it should be sounding better than it has in the past. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna test it out on here, and y'all can let me know in the comments how the audio is, and then we are gonna press ahead. And I did an audio check over here, and it sounds great. So we're gonna move ahead with the show. So the title of the show today is Biblical Masculinity. And we're attacking this topic from the basics. And what do I mean when I say biblical masculinity? What are we talking about? Because we're going to do a deep dive on this topic. And when I say biblical masculinity, I'm talking about what it means to be a man. Um, as you know, we live in a feminized society. Uh, for me, um, growing up, right around the age of 26, I realized that something was missing. That I was, you could call it the missing masculinity. Um, I didn't have success with women the way I wanted to. It was just random. I might get a girl here, but the relationship wouldn't last long. And I didn't know what I did to attract her. The women I did want, I didn't know what I did to repel them. I struggled at work with, because I was in the military, so I struggled with supervision and dealing with them. Struggled dealing with other men. Just in a lot of areas in my life, I could tell something was off. And now, fast forward, I'm almost 50 years old, and I've been on this journey since the age of 26. And now I realize what was missing. I didn't have biblical masculinity. I wasn't a complete man like I needed to be. I didn't understand what it was. And but I would see it. I'd see other people in my same age group in their 20s and stuff who had been reared and raised differently. Um, they function. They function in their masculinity um, better. They were complete in their masculinity. And, from observation and studying and research, I realized, okay, they were raised different. They were taught different things. And basically, these things were taught to them, and they picked these things up at an early age that I'm having to go out and do research on my own. So we're gonna get into it because a lot of people will be like, "Hey man, you need to man up. Hey man, you soft. Hey man, you just gotta be a man. Hey man, you needy." And they throw all these terms out, but there's a lot of vagueness. There's a lot of ambiguity behind these terms when they throw them out there. And what I'm gonna do on the show today is we're gonna clear all that up. We're gonna bring clarity and concrete understanding to what it really is to be a man. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna demystify it, um, and we're gonna do a deep dive on it. So we're gonna get it going, and to start this off, we're gonna start off like this. And I'm coming at this show. My approach to this show is something I heard. Something I heard somebody say, and they said you need to explain this like you would if you were talking to yourself back when you were 26. Like that's how I'm gonna explain it. You know, if I could go back and meet myself when I was 26 years old, this is how I would explain it to me. And I think that's going to really drive it home to y'all. Um, there's a Bible verse. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. It says, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, and I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. And what's gonna come about today and what's being taught, the underlying theme is gonna be just that. And there's a saying that I saw on the internet, and that's gonna drive the underlying theme of this show that we're doing here, and that is the boy must die so the man can live. There are a lot of men who never killed the boy in them, and that boy rules their life and can end up ruining your life. Okay? So we must and sometimes a lot majority of times we operate in boy thinking in certain areas of our lives, and we have to it's our job at in our journey to becoming a man. It's our job to seek out where that boy is living at, and the boy must die so the man in us can live. So we got to kill these areas where we're operating in a childlike mindset. We're making childlike decisions, childlike emotions, and stuff like that, so that the man in us can live. Let me know if that makes sense. Okay, y'all, let me know if that makes sense. All right. Um, so let's keep it moving. When I talk about who's the boy, and what you're gonna see as we go through this lesson, you're gonna see you've heard people say these types of things in a lot of different ways using different, I guess, uh, analogies, but it's so vague, so you can't really pinpoint exactly what it means. Um, let's go. We're going to talk about this. This is another. I heard somebody talking about this. This is something else. I saw somebody talking about online, and the dude was telling. He said, "Be a monster, but learn how to control it." Like you, he said, as a man, you need to be a monster, but you need to learn how to control it. Like you got to be capable of getting mad. You got to be capable of killing. You got to be capable of rage. You got to be capable of being a monster. That was such a good term that he used. I think it's Jordan Peterson or somebody. You got to be a monster, but then you have to be capable of controlling it. Okay? And what I wrote here, the society and media say you don't want to be aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to be gentle. You want to be soft. And they condition you. A lot of men are raised by their mothers, and or they'll be raised like me. I was raised, my father was in my life, but in a lot of areas he was restricted. He wasn't a man, and you know what I'm saying. Um, at the very basics, I hold nothing against my father. He showed me what he needed to show me, how to man up. how to not be scared, how to stand up to myself, the basics. But the finer things I lacked. So it was like I I was I grew up in a way where I was able to see both sides, you know? And like I said, by the age of 26, I realized, hey, there was a whole nother aspect to masculinity that I needed to learn. So he said, you need to be a monster and then you need to learn to control it. And what does that look like? What are people who were monsters, but they learned to control it? I think some good examples of people who were like that are people like if you look at the behavior and the attitudes of people like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. They were highly successful in what they did. They were very aggressive, confident, assertive. They weren't playing like Kobe. Um, you you could listen to some stories about Kobe where like when he got on that team, you know, and Shaq, they were talking about Shaq would go around and try to physically intimidate people, and Kobe straight up was like, "Yo, he went off on Shaq, and he got right up in his face, and he said willing to straight up fight and go at it." And Shaq respected that. He knew Kobe wasn't a person that he was gonna bully around with his size. You know what I'm saying? And Kobe talks about that story where he was like, uh, what did he say? He said, um, like Shaq came up to him and they had their altercation, and Kobe said in his mind he didn't. He was willing to get beat up, like, and he knew the chances were high of that, but in his mind he's gonna chop him down. And then if you just look at Kobe's approach and Michael Jordan's approach to basketball, like no fear. And you hear if you go out there, you hear like the next dance or whatever that movie was Michael Jordan put out. And you listen to all these people talk about how they feared Michael Jordan, how scared they were. And then Kobe talks about how when he came into the league, he'd hear people talk about it. He's like, what? And they were calling him Black Jesus and all this. And he's like, what? And he's like, man, I'm going to go out there and go against him. And, you know, and Michael Jordan respected him for that. Allen Iverson, same mindset, just a straight warrior type mindset. And like I said, you got to use sports because sports are something they use to pacify our warriors of our nation. They use sports to pacify them because, like, imagine um, uh, like a Kyrie Irving or a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or Steph Curry as a sniper or something. You know what I'm saying? Or some type of elite warrior. I mean, could you imagine? So they use these sports to pacify us, but there's still a lot to be learned about. There's plenty to learn from sports about masculinity and about what the quintessential essence of biblical masculinity is as a man. There's a lot of stuff you can take from sports, looking at sports and athletes and their mindset and the mindset they have and what it takes to overcome. What these types of athletes have is they're aggressive, they're confident, they're assertive. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. They're not timid and, oh, okay, I'm gonna just let that slide. Hey, you know, you can't have that out there. You can't have that on a battlefield, and you can't have that if you're going to be biblically masculine. If you're going to fulfill your role as a man according to what the word says, you're going to have you're going to have to be a monster, but you're going to have to learn to control it, be able to control it. Okay. Um, when it comes into, and like I said, this is part one. We got other parts that are gonna go to this because I think part two is of biblical masculinity is gonna be about marriage and women. Um, and what you're gonna find just with all aspects of being a biblically masculine man is something, it's going to get explained to you. Like in this series I'm doing, I'm going to explain this to you, and I'm going to show you practical little exercises and things you can do to cultivate this and bring forth so and become a biblically masculine man. Show you little exercises or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, and this is a big thing with men that I see today, is at the end of the day, you have to do it, not talk about it. You because you could deceive yourself by watching video after video after video on something, and kind of you'll be able to speak about it like you're it, but you've just deceived yourself because you haven't actually went out and tested it and done it. And at the end of the day, you have to do it. Um, I got a story. We got a pool we go to here, and I don't care, man. Look, I don't care if the sun's out and it's a hot day, man. That pool is cold. Okay, for some reason the water here. Um, so uh, what I found, what you find, if again, if you're paying attention to the thoughts and your mind, because and that's what I'm always doing, and that's a skill that we're going to talk about. We're probably going to do a whole show on it about being able to be aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and clearly understand what you're feeling and what you're thinking. You know, um, but I'm able to do that, and I was just sitting there. I got ready. I was ready to go in the pool. I already know that water's gonna be cold, and I'm just watching my mind look for reasons and excuses to delay getting in that pool. You know, and hey, maybe I'll do this. Let me go get this. And I'm like, dang, look at my mind. Wow, look at this thing working, because it knows how cold that water is gonna be when I jump in. And I was like, I just got to jump in, and the situation will take care of itself. My body, whatever it is, will take care. You know what I'm saying? Truth will take care of everything else. You just got to jump in there. So what I did, I was like, you know what? I threw my flippers and my goggles and all my swim stuff in the water, and I just jumped in. And as promised, it was cold as shit. I mean, that water was cold. And then and I put my flippers on, my swim gear, all of my stuff. Started swimming. Halfway into that first lap, I was feeling good, man. You couldn't even feel the cold anymore, you know. And what did that do? It builds up masculinity because you're taking action. Being a biblically masculine man, being a man is about taking action. You see what I'm saying? So I just threw that in there because that's just a good example. Um, so talking about properly fathered men versus the unfathered male. Okay. Um, these things that I'm teaching, uh, in a proper, in a functional family, they're going to be taught to a boy at a very young age. Soon after the boy has been potty trained and he can be around the men more often, these types of things are going to begin to be getting installed in them. Um, I wrote here, if you are a properly fathered uh, man, These are the things that a father will instill in you. And like I said, at a very young age, he will cultivate the warrior in you. He will help you unleash the monster that's in you. Because a lot of men don't know they're monsters. You got a lot of men, they're docile, and you can see they live in quiet, they just quietly suffer, and they got the monster in them, and they've been taught, don't be a warrior, don't be a monster, don't get mad, that masculine energy is bad, aggression is bad, naughty, toxic masculinity. And what they're doing there, they're suppressing all these natural masculine emotions, and they're pushing it down. This society is designed for you to suppress all that, all your and unleash it in the most unhealthy way. And you see a lot in different ways. Men are suppressing their masculinity, and then all of a sudden something happens, and it just boom, it explodes like a bomb. Whether it's their sexual energy or their masculine energy or their anger or their aggression, you know, and it gets unleashed in an unhealthy way. And then everybody's confused, and it further um, solidifies their, hey, toxic masculinity and all this stuff like that, because people don't understand. The warrior, the masculine man is not being cultivated. A lot of times men are raised by women, and women can raise boys. They can. They're designed to do it, but they can't raise men. So what you do, you have a lot of large boys that are being raised. And it's almost like a lost art or something of a man raising a boy into a man. It's almost strange to people when you see a man raise a boy, like what a man does to raise a boy. You know, like one of the examples I've given before on my show is, you know, like if a boy falls, a woman's gonna be like, "Oh, you poor thing. Oh, it's okay. It's all right, babe. You know, you're gonna be all right. Come here, give him a hug." And he crying, and then a man, if a boy falls and he skins his knee up and is bleeding, and he's sitting there crying, he's like, "Stop crying, boy." He keep crying, boy. I said, "Stop crying. You keep crying, I'm gonna whoop you." And he like, and you see, and he, that face get tough. And that's that monster coming, like that warrior. That and the boy's like, huh. He's like, my knee does hurt. And it is bleeding. But I don't have to cry. I could take it. And it's like, woo. And it's like, that's just one basic example of how a man can cultivate a boy into a man, where he could cultivate the warrior in that boy. He could help that boy unleash the monster, but know how to control it. You see what I'm saying? This is what's missing in males' lives today. They're large males. You know, you call them males, but they're not men yet, because these things haven't been cultivated in them. Something else I put here says, when a man is properly fathered, he will kill the boy in you so the man can live. He will cultivate the masculine energy in you. He'll show you how to control it. This is what happens when a boy is properly fathered. But because of this society we live in, now we have to do it now. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's easier when it's a it's a blank canvas, it's easier to cultivate the monster, to unleash the warrior, to develop biblical masculinity. It's easier to do it in a boy, but it can still very much be done when you're grown, when you're older. It's just you have certain things that you have to work through, you know. It's not a blank canvas. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that makes sense. Um, we're going to let's talk about testosterone. That is the male hormone. And again, with this society, with uh, a lot of men being raised in effeminized environments, and also with the diet and stuff out there, testosterone makes you with here are some of the I'm gonna read some of the I'm gonna read a bunch of stuff about testosterone. Okay. Testosterone, things associated with it and everything. Dominance behaviors. Machoism is the sense of being manly, self-reliant, a concept associated with a strong sense of masculine pride and exaggerated masculinity. Testosterone levels are high in individuals with aggressive behavior. Testosterone primarily controls aggression and sex drive. Okay. And let's keep reading. Status seeking. These are the behaviors associated with it. Status seeking, dominance, aggression. Um, Testosterone levels are often higher in people who exhibit aggressive behavior, such as prisoners who have committed violent crimes. Okay. These okay, and we're gonna really get in and break this down. Testosterone levels are increased during competitive sport games and in laboratory experiments when participants win competitions or confront opponents. Okay, this is huge, y'all. Y'all listen to what I'm saying. Dominance. Testosterone is associated with dominant behaviors such as competitive, aggressive behaviors. I might have put the same one in there twice. No, this is slightly different in both humans and animals. For example, in one study, so basically, what it's saying is your testosterone levels increase when you're constantly subject to competitive things. Listen to what I'm saying though, because what I'm showing you scientifically what I just showed you conceptually with what I said earlier. When you challenge yourself, your testosterone increases. Okay, and and the types of behaviors testosterone increases is dominant behavior, self-reliant behavior, um, uh, a strong sense of self. You see what I'm saying? And confidence. So, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is when you challenge yourself, when you jump in the pool, you increase your masculinity, your confidence, your self assurance. People with you raise your self esteem, okay? By what? By constantly challenging yourself, okay, to do bigger and more challenging things. You see what I'm saying? And again, going back to these basketball examples, when I talk about Kobe and Michael Jordan, like that level of aggression, okay? Um, you know, they constantly challenge themselves. And a lot of people like, oh, he's arrogant, he's this, he's that. You know, uh, they talk about status seeking behavior, desiring to level up and get to another level. You see what I'm saying? In whatever you do, instead of a quitter's mentality. And this is we're gonna we're gonna tie this all in because this heavily ties in to the word. Okay, it says we're reading Romans chapter 12 verse 2. It says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." So when we get in alignment with what the word says, it goes against the conformity to this world. It's akin to jumping into that pool. You know what I'm saying? You're stepping outside. People are gonna be like, "Well, why are you doing that?" You're gonna have to. It's gonna challenge you as a man. And the book is the perfect tool to develop biblical masculinity. You know what I'm saying? That's why I call it biblical masculinity. And I hope that makes sense. I hope that's making sense to y'all. Okay? Okay. Let's let's move forward a little more. Um 2 Peter 2:14, it says, "Having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, a heart they have exercised with covetous practices." Hold on. Let me see. Hold on one sec. Okay, I skipped ahead. Hold on. Because that was the wrong verse there. Okay. So, real fast. Okay, there it is. All right. So, continuing to talk about what we're talking about, and that is um, challenging yourself. We showed briefly chemically how being in challenging activities will raise your testosterone, and like they said, basketball, stuff like that. And you see a lot of people who shy away. It's literally like a vicious cycle downward, where you're shying away from things. You don't want any challenges. You're timid. You're making excuses. You're not trying to like discipline yourself to reach new levels. And it literally makes them more softer and softer and less masculine and less masculine and less masculine. And it's a vicious cycle. You get it, people with marriages where they let the woman dominate them, and it's just a vicious cycle down, one defeat after another. And like, take me back when I was 26. My issue, just issues with women, and it just one failure after another. And then you become suspicious, and you don't know what it is, and you think it's other people, and you think it's this, when it's really you're not operating under the proper wisdom and knowledge. You know what I'm saying? You're chopping trees down in the wrong forest in a way, you know? Um, let's go. So what I wrote here is, there's a freedom that comes when you stop caring so much about what doesn't matter. Okay? And that's what happened to me at the age of 26. Man, I got so fed up with my own shit. And I was like, you know what? I don't care what I need to do, man. I'm getting this thing figured out. All my fake pride. I started looking online on how to deal with women and all this stuff. I started, and it was at initially it's the most humiliating thing, because my mindset to them was, oh yeah, that just comes naturally. Like, Oh yeah, you just deal with women, and I was trying to act like, hey, I know what I'm doing, because that was just like that's the way everybody else was. They're like, oh yeah, you just talk to him, it ain't nothing, man. And no man, and that was my sentiment at that time. You know, no man wants to admit that he don't know how to talk to women or attract them. The feeling that I had back then was like, oh, you just attract women. Anybody could just attract a woman. I didn't want to face the fact that there was something off with me, and I just wasn't able to, you know, meet the women that I wanted to meet and everything like that. And I was meeting them here and there, but I didn't know why. I didn't know what I was doing right, didn't know what I was doing wrong. And the ones I wanted to talk to, they were just repelled by me. And I was like, well, it's them. And I just wouldn't face that aspect of myself. You know, I wouldn't kill that boy in me. I wouldn't face that Goliath because my pride wouldn't let me face it. And then one day I was like, you know what? I suck. And I need to figure this thing out. And I don't care. I'm going to just go online. I'm going to figure this thing out. And I typed it in, how to meet women. And it was the most humiliating thing I had ever typed into the internet or whatever. And I needed to be humiliated so I would be humble. But I did it. Boom. And then I that search didn't really yield nothing. So I typed in another one. I began searching, and slowly but surely, I began learning. It led me on a path that it wasn't about women. It was about me. It was about Yah drawing me back to Him and showing me how to be a real biblical man. And that's the journey I've been on for like almost 25 years or whatever. And I come on here, I teach y'all about some of the stuff I've learned and things I'm still learning. I'm not there yet. Don't get it twisted. I ain't there yet. You know what I'm saying? Um, so what I wrote here is there's a there's a freedom that comes when you stop caring so much about what doesn't matter. Society norms, women's opinions, people's opinions. Period. It's a freedom that comes when you conquer that and you get that testosterone hit. You know what I'm saying? And it causes you to go harder and drive harder and want more. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, for instance, we went to the swimming pool and, um, my daughters, they know how to swim, but they've never swam in deep water. So I said, all right, y'all gonna jump off that diving board. So they were scared, but they went. They jumped off the dive board. Then they went, said, jump off that high dive. And my one daughter, she went and she tried to turn around and come back because like them high dives, it don't look that high till you get up there. And then your mind do this thing to you. It did it to me when I went off it recently. It was like, whoa, you sure you want to jump off? And then you jump off that thing and you falling for a second. Most people never jumped off anything that high. And so, but she went and she pushed through with it. And that's what it's about. Like these walls going through them. But in use wisdom, you don't, I didn't have them just jump off the high dive. First, they jumped off the low diving board. And they it wasn't even a jump. They walked off it and fell in the water and came up and were like, ooh, and swam to the side. And they're like, oh, I did it. And then they went off it again, got a little more confident. And then they started bouncing and jumping off it and jumping in. And I'm like, okay, I like go up that high dive now. And they went up there and climbed up the high dive. And they jumped there. And that's how it is with developing your masculinity. There's things you do that you can do to challenge yourself more. And we're going to get into that We're gonna go. All right, let's see. And one of the things I talked about, and I might, you know, probably have to do a show going in on this thing, because these things I started doing years ago. So to me, that like this is just natural, a natural way of functioning. But we're talking about casting down imaginations. And that's Second Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. It says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So, what I realized now, because I've been doing this for a while, I thought naturally everybody knew how to do this. But then I remember I didn't know how to do this. And that is being aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. A lot of people just operate off of impulse. Why? Because it's worked for them. They haven't ran into any roadblocks and a lot of stuff. So they got a lot of stuff operating below the surface that they might not be aware of. And what will cause it to be covered up even more is pride. Pride will actually, in a damn near, it's almost like an intelligent, aware way, block you from seeing where you are operating as a boy in the areas you're operating like a boy in. Okay, pride will do that. It will block you from seeing that. So what you have to do is learn to be aware of what you're thinking, what thoughts are in your mind, and what you're feeling, especially when you get emotional and stuff like that. And that's a big one that everybody has to put work. I mean, me no exception. Um, Learning how to catch in the heat of an emotion, in the heat of emotion, catch them thoughts and what's going on in your mind and with you, what is compelling you to do, and just removing yourself from yourself almost and looking at what's going on so you can do what the word says here, bring into captivity every thought that exalts itself, that doesn't line up with the word, that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bring it into captivity. You know what I'm saying? So that's a big one in this growth and development. So drilling in deeper into the meat of this thing is the fact that gold is tried in the fire. You can listen to all the spiritual combat lessons and all the lessons you want to listen to and do all the studying you want. But at some point, you got to get in the fire. At some point, you got to jump in the pool. Like you could talk all you want about how cold the water is. At some point, you're going to have to jump in it. You know what I'm saying? And do it. So for why? So you can get the growth, because the growth don't happen reading about it. The growth happens, you level up when you do it, not when you sit there and talk about it and theorize it and hyper spiritualize it and all that. No, the growth happens. You man up. You develop biblical masculinity when you do it. Okay? And some of the things it teaches you is it teaches you how to be comfortable in your own skin, not to be this all nervous, shy person and all that. Um, so what I wrote here is you have to be comfortable in your own skin. In order to feel comfortable, you must be confident in what or who you are. To be comfortable with who you are, you must know the moves you are making will work. And this brings us to letting the word be a light unto our path. You see what I'm saying? So the word is a light unto our path. In order to become confident walking in it, you got to take a step. You see what I'm saying? And as you take each step in the word, as you make the changes that you need to make to get in alignment with the word, in the face of what you feel and what you think and what other people feel and think, you know this book is standing on truth. You know the word is the truth. And you begin walking in it, it begins developing confidence in you. And you begin to become comfortable in your own skin. You begin to not be all insecure and all that stuff like that. So like Psalms chapter 119, verse 105, it says, the word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. This is why you got to trust in the word, and it's going to help develop that biblical masculinity in you. Sirach Ecclesiasticus chapter 2. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord. So if you're going to let this word be a light unto your path, okay, and a lamp unto your feet. Listen to what it says here. It says, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in times of trouble. Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and listen what it says, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. So going right back to that swimming pool analogy, the water's cold. Hey, I just need to jump in. Stop procrastinating. Jump in the pool. The law, the word, the truth, the laws of nature, whatever, say, hey, I'm going to jump in the pool. The cold is not going to hurt me. It is going to feel uncomfortable, but it's not going to damage me. It's actually going to make me better. And I'm going to warm up once my body gets acclimated to it. I trust the law. Let me just jump in this thing. Boom, and jump in. And sure enough, that's what happens. And I wrote here the importance of sitting still in the storm and learning. You know what I'm saying? Because I jumped in that pool, go all the way in the water, I'll be like, I'll be underwater like that. And the next thing you know, my body's like, cling. My body toughens up and we good. Okay? Hopefully that's making sense to y'all. Charge the storm. I was watching this video this morning, and they were talking about buffalo. Buffalo are the only animals that charge a storm. When a buffalo sees a storm coming, they don't buckle down and, oh, let me take cover. Some animals, you got other animals, they run from the storm. Okay, you got some of them, they go find some place to hide. Well, what buffalo do is when they see a storm coming, they run towards it, because the buffalo knows if it runs to the storm and runs through it, it's going to get through the storm faster than it just sits there and tries to hide. Or you got animals that run from it and the storm will catch them and they're in the storm longer. Well, a buffalo charged the storm, and this is how we need to be as men. If there's something difficult, something challenging that needs to be done, you need to charge into it. charge the storm. You need to run towards it and deal with it, because it's going to end quicker if you charge the storm than if you run away from it. And what it says here, the quickest way through a storm is to charge through it, not running from it. This is the quickest way to man up and to be a man. You a good example. You see we got these dudes. We have dudes who come on YouTube. They try to uh, do the videos against me and everything. What do? Or I got people who come in the comments. They talking. I charge the storm. I say, hey, come on the show. I put a link in the comments and bring them on the show, because we ain't ducking no smoke. We ain't running from those storms. We're charging the storm. You see what I'm saying? Y'all put a 100 up in there if that's making sense. Okay? All right. A time for war. Okay? Again, don't let this feminized society drag you into this thing where, oh, you got to be timid. Oh, it shouldn't be any conflict, and and turn you, just feed the boy in you. Oh, just go run and hide. Nah. Sirach, or not, I'm sorry, Ecclesiastes. So this isn't Sirach Ecclesiasticus. This is Ecclesiastes. In the Bible, chapter 3, it says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. And listen what it says. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. So there's a time for all these things. But what I'm saying for y'all on this show, it's time for war. It's time to build up. Okay? It's time to man up. So what this was what I'm doing on the show today is this is just an introduction to biblical masculinity. I just laid the foundation for this. Okay, we're gonna build on it. I think the next show is gonna be more action oriented, about different things you can do to expedite cultivating biblical masculinity in yourself. But I already gave y'all the main way of doing it, and that is being obedient to the word. Like if you get lockstep obedient with this word, you're gonna start growing. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of things are gonna come against you, and it's gonna you're gonna be forced to prepare your soul for temptation, and you're going to be prepared to be tried in the fire just by being obedient to what this word says. Because this wicked society we've been um, raised up in. There's everybody has all these things that are counterintuitive to what the word says, that go against what the word says. And when you stand up in this book, it's gonna it's gonna challenge your masculinity. It is. People, places, things, mindsets, all this stuff. You're gonna have to weather against. There's gonna when you walk in this word, the storm is gonna come, and you need to charge that storm. That's the show for today. Biblical masculinity. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. And with that said, y'all, shalom, shalom.